What if I told you that the way you got out of bed this morning already revealed something about how fast or how slowly your body is aging? Not your face, not your gray hair. Something deeper, something your own doctor might not have the time to point out during a rushed 15-minute visit. If you are over 70, your body has been sending you signals for years, quiet ones, easy to miss, and today you are going to learn exactly what they mean. By the end of this video, you will know precisely where you stand, and more importantly, exactly what to do about it starting this afternoon. I'm Dr. Christian O'Brien, board-certified physician with over 15 years focused on metabolic health and preventive medicine in patients exactly like you. I have sat across the table from thousands of people over 70, and I can tell you with total honesty, the ones who age the best are almost never the ones who look the youngest. They are the ones whose bodies quietly pass 7 specific tests most people never even know they are taking. Let me tell you about a patient I will call Margaret, 74 years old, who came into my office last year convinced she was falling apart because her knees ached in the morning. What she did not realize, and what I had to explain to her that day, was that she was actually doing remarkably well by nearly every measure that truly matters for long-term health. Her grip was strong, her balance was steady, her mind was sharp as a tack. She was so focused on one small complaint that she completely missed how well her body was actually holding up. That happens constantly in my practice. People fixate on the wrinkle, the ache, the gray hair, while ignoring the signals that actually predict how many more healthy years they have ahead of them. I understand why. We are surrounded by messages telling us that aging well means looking a certain way, fitting into clothes from 20 years ago, or having the energy of someone half their age. None of that has much to do with what your organs, your immune system, and your brain are actually doing behind the scenes. The real markers of healthy aging are quieter, and honestly, most people are never told what they are. Today we are changing that. We are going to walk through 7 signs, starting with the one that matters least, and building all the way up to the one that matters most, the one most doctors will not tell you about unless you ask directly. I want you to think of these 7 signs almost like the dashboard in an older car. Most people only glance at the speedometer. Very few people ever check the oil pressure gauge, the coolant temperature, or the battery indicator. Yet those quieter gauges are often the ones that reveal real trouble long before the engine actually stalls on the highway. Your body has its own version of that dashboard, and today I am going to show you exactly where to look, in the exact order that matters. Before we go further, stay with me because sign number 4 on this list is the one that surprises almost every patient I share it with, and it might completely change how you think about your own health starting today. Let's start at the bottom of the list, sign number 7. If you can still stand on one leg for 10 seconds without grabbing onto something, your body is doing something remarkable. Think of your balance system like the suspension in an old truck. When the shocks are worn out, every bump in the road rattles your whole frame. When the suspension is solid, you barely notice the potholes. Your inner ear, your eyes, and the nerves in your feet all work together like that suspension system, constantly making tiny adjustments you never consciously feel. Researchers at Johns Hopkins followed a group of adults over 70 and found that those who could balance on one leg for 10 seconds had a significantly lower risk of serious falls over the following 3 years compared to those who could not. That single number, 10 seconds, has become one of the simplest predictors of frailty risk in the research world. If you cannot quite hit 10 seconds yet, do not worry. Standing near a kitchen counter and practicing for 30 seconds a day, holding the counter loosely at first, retrains that suspension system faster than most people expect. Here is what fascinates me most about this particular test. It is not really testing your legs. It is testing the conversation happening between your eyes, your inner ear, and the nerve endings in the soles of your feet. Thousands of tiny sensors that report back to your brain about pressure, angle, and movement every single second. When that conversation slows down even slightly, your brain compensates by widening your stance, shortening your steps, or reaching for furniture without you even noticing you are doing it. Most of my patients tell me they never consciously decided to start walking more carefully. It happened gradually, so gradually they assumed it was simply part of getting older. It is not. It is a trainable system, the same way a muscle is trainable. And the earlier you start paying attention to it, the more control you keep over how independently you move through your 70s, 80s, and beyond. Sign number 6 is your grip strength, And I want you to actually test this one right now if you have a jar in your kitchen. Grip strength sounds like a strange thing to measure, almost old-fashioned, like something out of a strongman competition. But your hand muscles are wired directly into the same neurological and muscular systems that control your heart, your lungs, and your ability to recover from illness or surgery. A large-scale review published in a major cardiology journal tracking over 140,000 adults across 17 countries found that grip strength was one of the strongest predictors of overall survival, stronger in some cases than blood pressure readings. Think of your grip like the pressure gauge on an old boiler. It is a simple number, but it reflects the condition of the entire system behind it. If opening that jar takes real effort, do not panic, but do start carrying your own grocery bags instead of asking for help, and consider adding light resistance band work twice a week. That pressure gauge responds faster than you think. I want to be clear about why this matters so much, because grip strength is not really about your hands at all. It is a window into how much lean muscle you are carrying overall, and lean muscle is where your body stores a huge portion of its ability to regulate blood sugar, fight infection, and recover after a hospital stay. When patients lose grip strength quickly, it usually means they are losing muscle mass everywhere else too, quietly, in the background, without any obvious symptom to alert them. I have seen patients regain a surprising amount of that strength within 8 to 12 weeks, simply by adding 2 short sessions of resistance work each week. Nothing dramatic, often using nothing more than a set of light dumbbells or resistance bands at home. The gauge moves faster than people expect once you start giving that system a reason to rebuild. Sign number 5 involves something most people never think about until it becomes a problem, and that is your walking speed. Not how far you can walk, but how fast you naturally move without trying to rush. Researchers at the University of Toronto tracked walking speed in older adults over a 10-year period and found that people who walked faster than about 2.5 miles per hour, which is a comfortable, unhurried pace, not a power walk, had dramatically better long-term outcomes across nearly every category they measured, from heart health to cognitive function. Your walking speed is like the idle speed on a car engine. When an engine idles too low, something underneath the hood usually needs attention. When your natural pace slows down significantly over a year or two, it is often the first visible sign that something metabolic or cardiovascular is quietly changing beneath the surface. The fix here is refreshingly simple. A brisk 15-minute walk most days, pushed just slightly past your comfort zone, has been shown to improve natural walking pace within a matter of weeks. What most people do not realize is that walking speed is one of the few measurements in all of medicine that combines information from your heart, your lungs, your muscles, your joints, and your nervous system into a single, simple number. That is exactly why researchers keep coming back to it. You cannot fake a fast, steady walking pace. Either the whole system is working together smoothly, or it is not. I tell my patients to time themselves walking down their own hallway once a month, nothing formal. Just a simple habit that lets you catch a meaningful slowdown early, while there is still plenty of time to reverse it. Now here is where things get interesting, because sign number 4 is the one that catches almost every patient off guard, and it has nothing to do with your muscles or your joints at all. Sign number 4 is how well you sleep through the night without waking up gasping, sweating, or needing to use the bathroom more than once. I know that sounds unrelated to aging well, but hear me out. Deep, uninterrupted sleep is when your brain performs what researchers now call its cleaning cycle, flushing out metabolic waste products that build up during your waking hours. Think of it like the nightly cleaning crew that comes through an office building after everyone goes home. If that crew never gets a full shift to finish the job, the mess accumulates day after day until it becomes visible. A study out of Harvard School of Public Health found that adults over 70 who consistently achieved uninterrupted deep sleep had measurably better memory retention and lower markers of inflammation compared to those whose sleep was fragmented, even when total sleep hours were similar. This is not about how many hours you sleep. It is about how deep and continuous those hours are. If you find yourself waking up 3 or 4 times a night, that cleaning crew never finishes the job, and the buildup shows up later as brain fog, mood changes, and slower recovery from everyday stress. The fix starts with something as simple as cutting off fluids 2 hours before bed and keeping your bedroom cooler than you think it needs to be, since core body temperature drops naturally trigger deeper sleep cycles. I want to pause here for just a moment. If you are the kind of person who shares helpful things with the people you love, this next section is exactly the kind of thing worth sending to a parent, a sibling, or a close friend, because what comes next changed the way I personally think about aging in my own patients. Sign number 3 is your ability to recover quickly from minor illness, like a cold or a stomach bug. Most people assume getting sick occasionally is just bad luck. What actually matters far more is how fast your body bounces back afterward. Your immune system in your 70s works a bit like a factory that has been running for decades. The machinery still works, but it needs more warning before switching tasks, and it needs a properly stocked warehouse of raw materials to do its job well. Researchers publishing in a major review within diabetes care found that older adults with stable blood sugar levels, even those without a diabetes diagnosis, recovered from minor infections meaningfully faster than those with frequent blood sugar spikes because chronically elevated glucose interferes with the immune cells responsible for fighting off invaders. If a common cold seems to knock you out for 2 full weeks instead of 5 or 6 days, that is valuable information your body is giving you about how well stocked that immune factory really is. This is not something to fear. It is something to act on. And stabilizing blood sugar through consistent meal timing and reducing refined sugar intake has been shown to shorten recovery windows within just a few months. Think about the last time you got a cold. Did it knock you flat for a few days and then release its grip? Or did it linger for weeks, leaving you foggy and drained long after the coughing stopped? That lingering feeling is not simply bad luck or a stronger strain of virus. It is often a direct reflection of how much raw material your immune system had available to work with. Consistent meal timing, meaning eating at roughly the same hours each day rather than skipping meals and then eating a large dinner, keeps that factory's supply chain steady instead of forcing it through boom and bust cycles that leave it unprepared when a real threat shows up. I promised you I would tell you about a real patient, and this is the moment to share her story, because she embodies nearly everything we have talked about so far. Her name was Dorothy, 78 years old, a retired school teacher who came to see me after her daughter insisted she get a full checkup. Dorothy could not stand on one leg for more than 3 seconds. Her walking pace had slowed to what she called her shuffle. She woke up 4 times most nights needing the bathroom. Her fasting blood sugar sat at 132, well into the pre-diabetic range. She told me she simply assumed this was what 78 was supposed to feel like. Over the following 4 months, Dorothy made 3 specific changes. She started a daily 15-minute walk right after breakfast. She switched her evening routine to stop drinking fluids after 7 o'clock. And she replaced her nightly bowl of ice cream with a small handful of walnuts and berries. 4 months later, her fasting blood sugar had dropped to 106. She could balance on one leg for 11 seconds. She was waking up once a night instead of 4 times. Her daughter told me at the follow-up visit that Dorothy seemed like herself again for the first time in years. Nothing about Dorothy's treatment was complicated or expensive. It was simply targeted at the exact signals her body had been sending all along. Sign number 2 is one that people almost never connect to aging, and that is your sense of smell. Specifically, whether you can still clearly distinguish between different strong scents like coffee, cinnamon, and fresh-cut grass. Your olfactory system, the part of your brain responsible for smell, sits remarkably close to regions involved in memory and cognitive processing. Think of it as an early warning wire running directly from your nose to your brain's control room. A decline in the ability to distinguish scents has been studied extensively, and researchers have found it can appear years before other, more obvious signs of cognitive change become noticeable. This is not a diagnosis, and a weaker sense of smell alone does not mean anything is seriously wrong. But it is a signal worth paying attention to, and it is worth mentioning, gently and honestly, to your own doctor at your next visit, because this is exactly the kind of subtle finding that benefits from a conversation with someone who knows your full medical history. Staying mentally engaged through reading, puzzles, and regular social conversation has been associated with slower decline in this particular area, giving you a real, practical lever to pull. I actually keep a small set of distinct scents in my own kitchen at home: coffee beans, dried cinnamon sticks, and a sprig of fresh rosemary. And every so often I take a moment to notice how clearly I can tell them apart. It sounds almost silly written out loud, but it takes 10 seconds and it costs nothing. Think of it as a quick, informal check on that early warning wire running from your nose to your brain, the same way you might glance at a smoke detector light to confirm the battery is still working. Not because you expect a fire, but because catching a problem early always beats catching it late. And now, sign number 1, the most important sign of all, The one I wish every person over 70 understood clearly. It is not your strength. It is not your speed. It is your sense of purpose. Whether you wake up most mornings with something specific you are looking forward to, a person to call, a hobby to return to, a small task that genuinely matters to you. This sounds almost too simple to be medical advice, but the research behind it is staggering. Long-term studies tracking older adults for over a decade have consistently found that a strong, self-reported sense of purpose is associated with lower rates of heart disease, slower cognitive decline, and meaningfully longer lifespan, independent of diet, exercise, and even income level. Think of purpose like the pilot light on an old gas stove. Everything else in the kitchen can be in perfect working order, but without that small, quiet flame staying lit, nothing else ignites the way it should. I have watched patients with every physical marker in perfect order decline rapidly after losing a spouse or retiring without a plan for what came next. And I have watched patients with real physical limitations thrive for decades because they had something or someone pulling them forward each morning. This is not something a prescription can fix. It comes from reconnecting with people, rebuilding small routines, and giving yourself permission to care about something again. Even something as simple as a garden or a weekly phone call. I remember one patient, a retired mechanic in his 70s, who told me flatly that he had nothing left to look forward to after his shop closed. 6 months later, he was volunteering 2 mornings a week teaching teenagers basic car maintenance at a community center near his home. His blood pressure readings improved. His mood improved. Nothing about his diagnosis had changed. What changed was that pilot light. It was lit again, and everything downstream from it responded. I have watched this pattern repeat itself so many times in my career that I no longer think of purpose as a soft, sentimental idea. I think of it as a measurable clinical variable, every bit as real as cholesterol or blood pressure, simply harder to put on a lab report. Before we wrap up, I want to be completely honest with you the way I would be with any patient sitting in my office. Nothing in this video replaces an actual conversation with your own doctor who knows your full history and your specific numbers. Use everything you just learned as a starting point for that conversation, not a replacement for it. Here is what I want you to take away from everything we just covered. Your body has been talking to you this entire time, through your balance, your grip, your walking pace, your sleep, your recovery from illness, your sense of smell, and most importantly, your sense of purpose. None of these signals require expensive tests or complicated interventions to improve. They require attention, consistency, and a willingness to take small, specific action, the same way Dorothy did in just 4 months. Aging well after 70 is not about defying time. It is about listening closely enough to know exactly where to place your effort. You decide what you eat tonight. You decide whether you take that 15-minute walk tomorrow morning. You decide whether you call that friend you have been meaning to reach out to. That power has been yours the entire time, and now you know exactly where to point it. If someone in your life just crossed 70 or is approaching it, send them this video today. Not because I am asking you to share it, but because there is a real chance one of these 7 signs could change how they spend the next decade of their life, and that is worth far more than any message you could write yourself. If this helped you see your own health more clearly, subscribe, because next time we are talking about the one morning habit that quietly raises blood pressure in millions of adults over 60, and most people are doing it within 10 minutes of waking up. I'm Dr. Christian O'Brien, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.